Super excited to announce the Law Firm Retreat Design Your Future being held this August 5th through 8th, 2026 in the Denver, Colorado area. Teaming up with law firm architects, Power Strategy Group, we're going to be having an amazing opportunity for up to 15 firms to work on the business, not in the business. Find out more at powerstrategygroup.com. Welcome back, everyone. This is Ruby Powers with Power Up Your Practice, and I have a special guest. I have Luis Bares, the founder of Law Firm Architects. And before we clicked record, we were trying to remember how we met, when, how, where, what, but it's been great getting to know each other and being on this journey. But anyway, Luis and I are working on a few projects together, and I want to share more about him. I want him to share more about himself. And I've been grateful to learn more from him over this last year or so. So, Luis, welcome to the show, and maybe introduce yourself a little bit.
Ruby, thank you. Yeah, and I was also trying to remember how we met, so that's a fun trying to recall there. But yeah, I'm Luis. I'm the founder of Law Firm Architects, and my background's actually not in legal. Interestingly, my
Whoa.
background, yeah, is not in legal, but it comes full circle. It's actually a love story, believe it or
Oh,
not, as to how I ended up here. But my background actually is in engineering. I've worked at NASA for 15 years. And
wow.
I was an engineer. Yep, I have a few graduate degrees in like modeling and simulation and industrial engineering. And I always like to say the punishment for being a good engineer at a place like NASA is you move up into leadership.
Management.
Yeah,
Leadership.
management. Yep. And so I moved through the ranks really quickly at NASA and became head of product development, head of their PMO for project management. And at the end of my NASA career, 15 years there, I was head of customer experience. And so through that escalation, I learned about different parts of NASA and this gigantic machine that employs, hundreds of thousands of people across the world. And in my last job, it became my problem to design all of the way that the kind of institutional services support the employees, right? So the way that HR
Oh,
works, the way that legal works. So that was my first indoctrination into legal, having to help a stuck federal office with a ton of volume of things to work on across the agency. And reimagine digital transformation style their entire operations with the few pennies of federal dollars they had, and civil service employees and contractors that had been there forever and knew how things were done. So that was my first indoctrination. But fast forward several years, I met another mutual contact of ours, Nadine Navarro. It's also the CEO of Drafty AI. And so this is where it becomes a love story. She was my then girlfriend and was mentioning to me that just kind of the churn of running her law firm. She's an employment-based immigration attorney. And I was able to help her strategically, just like, hey, implement this fix, implement this other fix. Fast forward a bunch, my fixes didn't help. They actually just made things worse because I was
what?
putting band-aids on things. Yeah, I was actually just putting
Oh,
band-aids. And so the problems would come back. And it was getting to a place where I realized I can actually help deeper here if we just sit down and apply the methodologies that I've worked on at other places, at NASA, at Pfizer afterwards. Um, and we sat down in a coffee shop and mapped out her entire practice, the way that I had done it generically across industries. And we realized in that moment that one, we could visually see all of the things that were an issue. And the strategies were pretty clear on what we had to do, and the prioritization came shortly after. But we also realized that we had a framework. And so that's why we started Law Firm Architects. And it's been a journey.
this episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email and right inside your inbox. And then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it. Wow, that's a great story. I want to dig deeper. So we want to cover why law firms feel stuck and why the real problem is almost never what they think it is. Now, I'm wondering what the real problem is. Now, I probably could guess. And then what it actually means to build a firm that runs without the owner in the middle of everything, which I think sometimes when I talk about like work yourself out of a job, work a system so that you aren't needed necessarily. I think a lot of people get a
Yeah.
little scared about that idea, but and then how to take a practice that feels like chaos, pure chaos, and turn it into something you can actually build on. So let's maybe go deeper on each one of those ideas. So why do firms
So
feel stuck? And what's maybe the problem that we don't think it is?
this is really interesting. I talk to lawyers across practice areas, I should preface. I'm not just in immigration, although that was our core. That's where we started. So we've built up a good base of, I could say, longitudinal research that allows us to
Uh-huh.
make extrapolations around that practice area. But we've worked across other practice areas as well. And I think in general, firms feel like, or firm owners feel like they have a people problem, or maybe there's a technology product that will solve all of their needs, right? Like that one strategic hire, um, or maybe they just need better staff, right? And things will run better. It's just like, hey, delegation's not working. But what we keep finding is that the true issue is that the systems just live inside people's heads. They haven't properly been documented. And so firms feel stuck because they're completely driven by typically a singular person or a small group of people who are critical path on the processing of a case, meaning like it has to touch them, right? Many, many times.
Mm, mhm.
Um, and so how work gets handed off, how clients get updates, how a case moves forward, all of those pieces are fine when you're small to work in that way. But as you get busy, as the caseload grows, those invisible systems that you're working off of, because they are systems, right? They start to crack. And we find that firms feel stuck bringing it back home, um, because that one person or that small group of people are just burnt out. And so it really is a design problem. It's not a people problem. There's no tool that you can buy that will solve all of these problems. And it's the one piece of work that we don't do, sitting down and actually designing the firm.
I have this story I share. When I did the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses course in
Mm,
2015, it was such a great program. And every time I walked away from my office for like 3 hours, I don't know, 2 hours, half a day, sometimes a day, which felt like forever. And my firm was only like, mm, well, I should do the math here, 6 years old, I guess, at the time. But I had small kids
mm,
at home and I was still trying to juggle everything. Like stuff would start falling apart. And then I'd go back and I'd get rid of fires. And I realized I felt like I was just putting my finger in the dam and like, plugging the holes and sort of like keeping it all together. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. Like I can't be the person that has to be in the middle of everything. This is exhausting.
yeah,
Like I want to have a vacation. I want to be able to unplug. Right. So
yeah.
anyway.
We hear that often. We hear that often, by the way, when we talk to law firm owners. Is like, hey, I can't unplug. And so there's a lot of things that we recommend, and we can get into some of those, of course, throughout the flow of the conversation. But ultimately there is a little bit of like knowledge extraction that needs to happen from key players because they know the gold standard and that needs to become the model for the firm, whatever we do with it.
So what would you give suggestion for moving forward to try to get unstuck?
I'd say the number one thing firms can do to get unstuck, and this works immediately, is map your actual flow. Pick one type of work that you do, something that feels representative, not just a one-off or not something that it just runs quickly through your process, but something that touches various parts of the business.
Mm.
And you don't have to do this with fancy technology, although we do, and it helps, right? But just map out the flow. Like start with a napkin, and lead reaches out. What are the ways that they do that? How do they land? um, what do you do with that? What's the next step, right? And when you get to, let's say, onboarding a client after you've had a consultation, if that's part of your flow, you already start to see places where maybe you don't have the answer, or maybe there's obvious duplication of duties or something that's incredibly inefficient. When you start to write it out, even though you know the process, you start to add exceptions and other tangents, and that complete picture it it just makes things objective, right? So immediately you're able to see the opportunities that address real pain points. So I'd say that's the one thing because everything feels like a good problem to solve, and you could realistically spend money on art and time on all of it, but you have to prioritize. So being able to see end to end how a case flows allows you to then prioritize, and that's kind of the number one recommendation to get unstuck.
Um, so so it's a combination of data collection and also mapping out the flow of your systems. and then going from there. And so probably a good idea, if you can, is sit down and map out your entire from the beginning to the end. But even if you
Yeah.
feel overwhelmed by that, maybe just focus on the most problematic area
Yeah,
potentially and
for
go
sure.
from there.
That's actually a really great recommendation, Ruby. Mapping out the whole process may not even be the issue. With some
Mhm.
firms that we talk to, they say, hey, the intake process is smooth. The phones ring, it doesn't drive us crazy, we're good. It's really the
Mhm.
case progression once a client signs. So think about what part of your process maybe is a place where you don't have enough insight and you'd like to understand more, or a place where there's obvious pain point. Just map that. And the anchor to doing that should be your stages, right? Like you're either working on the case or you're filing it, or you're sending a demand letter if you're across practice areas. Um, but yeah, Ruby, I think that's a great suggestion. Start small, pick a stage.
Yeah, because I think also we need to overcome this whole like everything has to be perfect, like when you
Yeah,
think about those
yeah.
paralysis, what like I've been doing these
Analysis
exercise
paralysis.
analysis. Yeah,
That's what it
I've been
is.
doing these like little questions to myself, like, why am I not doing X? What's
Hmm.
keeping me from doing Y? And I'm like, is it because I feel like it needs to be perfect, or like I don't know, whatever's holding me back,
Yeah.
and because like intellectually we've we've heard some of this before. We know what we're supposed to do, but we don't do it
Yeah, and
sometimes,
and I but and to be honest, a lot of firms that I consult with and have initial consultations with, I actually recommend that they DIY this stuff because they
Mhm,
can do it, right? And some business owners have an aptitude for this. You do coaching, right? You understand
mhm,
some people have
right.
the orientation towards just tell me what I got to do and I'll do it. And so you don't have to be perfect. I love that idea, Ruby. That is actually brilliant. I want to say that more because one thing that we learn whenever we even finish an entire engagement with a firm and we transform their whole practice, on day one, things are never smooth, right? Because there's so
Mhm.
much change that even us, like we are pushing for perfection, right? Like that is what we want. We're selling that dream. We accept and we explain that day one, it might hurt a little, right? It's just a big change. So don't aim for perfection, aim for good enough, and just get started.
Yeah. What's that expression about the perfection is the something of
Um,
something?
don't let perfect get in the way of good enough is something I heard at
N
NASA all the way,
Oh,
or all the time
really?
too.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
There's another one. It's like, anyway, I'm someone's listening that
yeah.
like probably yelling it
It's
at
this.
us
Yeah.
and yeah. I'm never good at those. Okay. Well, I think we need to remind ourselves. We need to give ourselves a little grace. And I think even when firm owners or business owners call upon a consultant, like law firm architects, power strategy group, whatever, like, it takes some humbleness, I guess, let's say, to be
Hmm.
to open up your world and share your issues and say, here's my mess. It's like letting someone come to your house when you haven't cleaned up for company. You're like, I'm never going to do that. But at some point you need
Yeah,
to, if you're going to need some extra help with organization or cleaning up, or
yeah.
getting stuff done that's just getting out of control for yourself to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Ruby, I'm glad you mentioned that because it reminds me of something else that I learned from you, and that's the importance of
Oh
being
boy.
a vulnerable leader. This is a
Oh,
good thing. It's
okay.
a good thing. Chill. This is a good thing. But being a vulnerable leader, right? Um, because I've met with you and your team, we've talked, right? And like you lead with swiftness and authority and direction, but your team knows that you are a vulnerable leader. You celebrate wins.
Mhm,
And so going through a process like mapping out your firm, yeah, you could do it in isolation, but it works better if you have your team coming along for the ride and being a part of
mhm.
that because you want this process of like redefining your firm to happen with your team and for them, not to them. I think that's a really important aspect from a change management perspective too. You reminded me of.
Well, and I completely agree because I think I shared that story. Like I went to ABA Tech Show in 2019 for
Hmm.
the first time and I got so excited. I was like a kid in the candy store. I was like, ooh, because I had just had this technology and I just sort of set it and forget it. And I thought, oh, this is good enough. Like I'm running the firm from Dubai. Like it's blah, blah, blah. We're
It
doing great,
works.
whatever. Yeah. and then I saw this other fun stuff, and I think that's why I also wrote about in my book, like, be careful of the shiny object syndrome,
Object
because
syndrome. Yeah,
yeah. And
it's
so
real.
it is real. And I bought a whole bunch of stuff, and I went back and, like, on the promises of some of the vendors, like, I was supposed to connect all the dots. And, like, anyway, it was a colossal mess because I did it
Oh,
wrong. Like, I should have gotten my team buy-in, I should have done it sort of a
yeah,
little bit in a different order, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I've ever since that moment, like
makes
7-ish
sense.
years ago, I've learned to do things different. And the change
Yeah,
management, that is its own thing. I
yeah.
should do, like, a
It's
whole
so hard.
series on that, because between the, AI and technology, and that is in the realm of what you work in as well, like
Mhm.
with the tech stack and everything and
That's right.
SOPs. But yeah, anyway, I started going off on a different angle there, but basically change management really is a
It's hard.
critical part of
Yeah.
leadership and management, and sort of getting people's buy-in is really a lot of what I learned the
It's
hard way.
yeah, and I'll tell you, I when I was head of product at NASA, which I feel like I earned my stripes in that role because I deployed services like Office 365 before you put emails in the cloud or did chat in the cloud at business
Uh-huh.
or for work. I deployed that to hundreds of thousands of people. And it
Wow.
sounds great, but I totally messed it up. Like in many
Oh.
ways, like decisions that we made to configure something a certain way impacted the mission, and that's not a good thing to hear from the administrator at NASA. And so one of the things that we learned there is change management is so important, and I bring a lot of that into this business. I'd say it's the one part of our business that continues to grow in terms of staff all the time because we can never be doing enough to support clients who are going live or supporting a go live. Um, People are busy, and when things change from a Friday to a Monday, the last thing you want is to be inconvenienced or unable to find a case update and a
Mhm.
client's on the phone. So yeah, change management's huge, Ruby. You should do a whole series on that.
Yeah,
It's
we should
important
do
in
that.
the industry.
Note to self, note to my
Yeah, love
producer.
that.
Yeah. Love that for us.
Yeah, love that for us.
Um, so let's go to the building a firm that runs without you, because that sounds
Oof. Okay.
really enticing. I think we're all, like, dreaming of margaritas on the beach or something when we think about that. But how do we make that happen? And how do we start? What does it look
Yeah.
like? How do we make it happen? And where do we start?
Good good
Unpack
question. Yeah, let me unpack that for you. So
Decide however you want to answer.
yeah, I think there's three else. So like my brain immediately goes to three elements,
Okay.
and I know you're oriented this way because I've read your book. I've gone cover to cover on it.
Oh,
People,
wow.
process, and technology, right? Um, I think that these are important ways to think about answering this question. To build a firm that runs without the owner, there is no panacea. There's no technology that's going to solve that problem. So let's just accept technology alone won't do it. Um, Redesigning a great process, having a killer SOP that's just like has pretty pictures and steps and like anybody can follow it, probably is going to help a lot. But without a way to deliver that and make it efficient, it may not help a ton. And then having all of those things but not having people, you're probably not going to run your firm on Claude, although you can run a lot of aspects of it, and we help firms with that, by the way. There's a lot of work there around like how do you use AI, a separate series for us, Ruby, I love that. But really, it starts with actually having a people strategy that scales beyond you. So enabling legal judgment at the firm without the owner is a first step. And what I mean by that is thinking about case progression. So a firm that runs without you can still tag you to jump in at critical moments, right? To review a
Mhm.
case when it's ready, to have a consultation because you're the only attorney, perhaps, right? But you absolutely should be empowering other people to run case progression. That is like the number one thing that I recommend. And if you're a solo and there's no other people, this is where technology helps, right? Like, what are the things that you can create in your firm procedurally that will help it run more so without you? It doesn't mean that you disappear, that you stop caring about the work, right? It just means that we're starting to delegate. So, building a firm that actually runs without you is a multifaceted strategy that actually starts with people that are part of redesigning a process or part of the process and are using technology as a means to actually get there. So that's the biggest piece, and I think the the deliverable, like the thing you want to walk away from an exercise like that, just to give something super tangible, is building a firm that runs without you is creating a stage by stage by stage bulleted list that's easy to browse, that's not overwhelming, it's not AI slop. You create it that says, for this type of case, we do these things, right? Like Ruby, at your firm, the paralegal will progress case progression, for example. Attorneys are deeply involved in the process, right? And but attorneys can shift their focus to other things and
Mhm.
still know the case is moving. That's really, really important. So making sure we have those pillars built in, regardless of the size and the scale, is really, really big. And the thing that we walk into often, of course, is people strategy decisions. Like, oh, I don't know if I can stretch this person to also kind of own this space instead of just do the job with me driving. So
Mhm.
we end up spending a lot of time, useful time. I don't want to sound like it's bad, talking through the psychology of being a slightly different team than you are today. And that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah. So spoiler alert, there is no easy button that gets us to running the firm without us autonomously and we're on the beach with a margarita. But anyway, we're constantly striving towards that goal. No.
Yeah, we are striving towards it. That's a really good point. And actually to that point, Ruby, I just want to add in there, there's a lot of programs out there that sell lawyers on do this one AI thing and it'll change your life. These
Mhm.
are accelerators. Like, for example, Nadine's Drafty AI company is a really good example of a product that gives you an insanely strong RFE. We use it with our clients that are in immigration, better than any other product on the market. Use that stuff. It's awesome. But this dream of a fully automated practice, it's depersonalized. So your brand is shot, right? And your brand is a lot in this industry. And, fortunately, really, uh, and we don't want to lose the personalization because your clients don't want to engage with a robot. But could you stitch it all together in Claude and hit run? Yes, just maybe start with back of house stuff and still have strong humans to build relationships on behalf of your clients.
That's a really good point. I like the idea of the accelerator and it doesn't take away from the human component and what differentiates us in the professional service industry.
Mm,
Which I think um, we'll have to continue to clarify to the client what makes a firm different than
yeah,
another one, in all of
yeah,
this change that's rapidly happening.
that
Um,
is true.
but
Yeah, that's yet another series.
Yeah, another series. Um, okay, so but what would you say, like, no one wants to admit it, but would be the first thing to change, that needs to change for a firm owner who's, like, maybe hypothetically, potentially a bottleneck in their own practice?
Oof. Yeah, this is a strong question. You know, there's a lot of things that I could say in terms of the first thing, but I'm going to start with mindset.
Okay.
Um, Running a small business, because we're talking about owners, right? So let's define small business as like under 10 million. Okay. Running a small business here, I always like to say it's kind of like being chased by the cops while you're on fire. There's just so much happening all the time. Like, if you're
Oh,
running
is
your
it
own law firm,
like building the plane and taking off at the same time for
yeah, while you're
your
also
head?
deteriorating because like something flew in through an engine, there's always something happening. And so your attention is diverted in a million directions and it needs to be, right? And so you have to build resilience. Our clients come to us from a place of burnout, right? And so we don't want to just kind of say, hey, go do these things and you're done. We spend a lot of time with mindset and we think about our process as providing a little bit of therapy, but the mindset is about resilience. It's about knowing that you're putting a plan in place and you have to trust that plan, but
Mhm,
also you have to have the resolve it takes as a leader, not just a lawyer running a law firm, but a leader of people, a leader of processes, making authoritative decisions, um, that you have vision and you can sell that to other people. So it has to start with mindset. This is the first thing. So even if you're scrabbling a process on a napkin and saying, this is how I'm going to use DocketWise better today, or how I'm going to do intake a little bit different, maybe I'll write a script for that. You're chipping away at a larger problem, and these things snowball and they get bigger, and they add momentum to your firm. So the first move is really the most critical, and it starts with you accepting that you're going to go make a change and that you're going to start the process, whatever that looks like for you. That would be the first. There's a long list.
or what would be the second one?
Okay, yeah. The second one is like I'd say attitude. Um, Attitude in the sense of believing that you are the only one who can do things. You are
Mm.
actually the only one who can do things. It's egotistical to think that way, but it's true, right? You created the business, you have the idea of what the gold standard
I
looks
don't know
like.
how to mail anything anymore. There's like a handful of
Yeah,
things I don't know how to do because I've evolved to doing other things and now I don't know how we do it. But
yeah,
anyway.
that's great. That's fantastic. I don't see that enough, right? But I think that second one is like the attitude of like it has to be me. That's got to
Mm.
go. That's got
Yeah,
to
it's
go. You have
definitely
to let your team
super old
fail
school.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to let your team fail. The only way that your team is going to learn is by failing. I'll give you a really good example. On my side, working with law firms, we had a team, a large law firm move through our process, and the teams were very choppy. And when we got to the end and we went live with all the stuff, everyone's excited, it looked good. As soon as they went live, they had a ton of changes and things they wanted done, right? And it was really challenging to like take all of these changes at the last minute as a team. We just like led this whole transformation, and so we had to actually um, think about not just the people who were deeply involved in this project, but like how can we all jump in and help out here. And so when we started figuring out how we could help each other out and what we could do, we realized we were creating these silos for literally no reason. You know, our
Mm.
process was well documented enough. People who were cross-trained in a different skill could come over and help in this other thing. And so we see that in law firms often, you know, so we have to let the paralegal, for example, take more authority on cases. And when they're not clear, document your decision framework of why you make a decision a certain way and explain that to them and trust them. Maybe to mess up the first time a little bit, hopefully not disastrous, but under your leadership. And that is a huge change, just attitude.
Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's stafi.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off. There was something you said earlier that had me thinking about something we're working on. Like I think I've shared this on some other episodes or somewhere where I basically said, like, I realize I can only manage maybe like 6 to 8-ish people. Like we got to about 10 people underneath me, like it always like it would fall apart because I just couldn't do the work and manage all those
Yeah.
people. And so it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then like
Mm,
eventually I started building like finding like another leader that could help me supervise and keep things cohesive. And then after a while I realized I was building like a leadership layer, I guess you could say, in like a hierarchy or um, and organizational chart. And even that's
mhm.
what we're working on right now is to build the infrastructure that we can continue to expand and grow as the work flows and needed, because we have like a leadership team of I think 4 something of us, and we really need more because of the
Yeah.
growth that we're having. And so we were having conversations about that today of like who from our team could we start giving some more leadership
Mm,
position, some ownership, and start priming them for some more roles in that space. And I think that's what I realized in the progression of my firm was like first I had to become a better manager, and then when I finally could keep it together, then I had to find another manager and leader, and then and basically continue to grow. But the challenges that are today are not the challenges for tomorrow. Once it's like a video game, like once you succeed at this level, then you go and there's like gets harder and harder. But you have more skill set to be able to
yeah.
to overcome those challenges.
But they are defining challenges, you know, and how you solve them and how you entrust your people to be a part of those solutions. That's says everything about your leadership. The piece that I think is embedded between mindset and maybe the attitude of I have to do everything is leadership.
Mhm.
I find that law firm owners don't spend enough time thinking about leadership, you know, and they should. There's like just really great examples of leaders, yourself, Ruby, of course,
Oh, thank you.
who do a really good job of evangelizing what good looks like. but thinking about the vision for your firm, like why you do the things you do. I heard you talk about this on your panel in the ALA Mexico Cancun conference. Um,
Uh-huh.
and it just was really reaffirming of kind of the stuff I saw at big enterprises also. It's like, this is why we're here. This has been bought in by our clients and they're represented here and our shareholders and everyone. Like, this is why we're here. It's important for a law firm to do that as a team. That's a that's a difference between what I think makes a high performing team and one that is just there for a job.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, there's a lot of differences between manager and leader, and I was sort of trying to make them synonymous in what I just asked earlier, but they
Yeah, good point.
are different and drastically. And I think at first we're trying to find those who have management qualities, but then also you have that leadership potential as well. And we joked, about how that's what happens a lot of times if you learn the function, like let's say legal assistant, legal work, and then the low hanging fruit in a firm is to like, oh well, let's just raise them up to, I don't know, office manager, office administrator, or I don't know, some other leadership role. But it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
necessarily mean that they have the skill sets to do that,
right. That's true.
and
Or
right.
or the interest.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
Right.
the interest. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, I mean, what I find in law firms too, Ruby, that's really interesting. When I find a firm that is maybe one managing partner is the primary attorney, they have two or three paralegals, maybe a legal assistant, and they're really starting to scale and pick up steam, is they haven't had a career progression conversation with the staff. And
Exactly.
so we come in and we do that, right? And we talk to the staff. And the thing that we're interested in is, what do you do here? Obviously, like, how do you do it? But what do you want to be doing? What does like success look like for you? Because let's be honest, we're not in an economy anymore where everyone retires like our parents did and had the gold Rolex, right, at 65. It's just not, you don't work with one company forever. So as business owners, you can kind of cut through some layers of BS with your employees and have conversations about how can you empower their careers beyond their engagement with your firm. Because the reality is eventually they may not be there, right? Or maybe they want to have your job. I've had a employee look at me previously in the eyes and say, when I asked about career progression, I'm like, hey, what's the job you want? Looked at me in the eyes and said, I kind of want yours. And so
Oh
we designed
wow.
a career path for that person to get into that role that I was in at the time. But that's what good leadership looks like. And I think this is a differentiator, again, for business owners that are involved, wanting to generate not just value for themselves, but also for their people, beyond just monetary, right? Like fulfillment in the work.
And I think sometimes what we're just talking about right now can feel like that's just the icing on the cake. Like that's the extra stuff that we never really have time to get to because we're just like dealing in the grind but we do need to incorporate it. And what I've learned of my
Yeah.
16 and a half years of running a law firm, whew,
Wow.
that's a really long time, I feel like,
You're
but
awesome. You're a superstar.
well,
That's
okay,
so great.
before we clicked record, let's just say that I said, Luis, you really are very complimentative, if that's a word. And then you said, yeah, some people refer to me as a hype man. And you're so nice. I like appreciate it. It's like
Well,
it's sort of weird to be so complimented. So thank you very
oh, no
much.
worries. No worries. I mean, I've spoken to your class before, right, where you
That's
teach at
right.
law school. I've like spoken at a conference where you also helped organize. So you're very accomplished, Ruby. So these are genuine compliments. They're not just blowing smoke. But I have been described, as you said, by firms that I work with, especially on a coaching basis, of being like the hype man. I'm like, you can do this, okay? You got this.
Yeah, well, people love that, they love that, they need that encouragement, that excitement, and because this can be very daunting to, there's the change, there's like, how do we climb this mountain? How do we get there one step at a
Yeah,
time, and what are those steps? And somebody who's been through it and can guide you through that. That's what a lot of law firms are yearning for. And there's a lot of services that law firm architects and Power Strategy Group, we provide along the way that can help firms. And no, I appreciate all of that. So I think that most firms might describe their work as a little chaotic. Maybe they don't want to
okay.
describe it or mention it or say it, like, or don't, they're like, we're good. But if you if you did have something a little bit messy and you want to turn it into a system that you can build on. I mean, I think as we're getting closer to the end, like what are some of the common operation mistakes that you see firm makes, and like what would be something that you could get the biggest impact, the biggest ROI for making some change?
Sure. I think the biggest mistake that I see is tech before process. I know we talk about this a
Mm,
ton, so I don't want to be like a broken record about it, but that just sucks. It never works well. I'll give you a really good example that should resonate with everybody listening. You've probably bought a piece of software at one point and asked a question like, great, can this automate fee agreements? Just to pick that, or engagement
mhm.
letters. And some vendors looked at you and said, genuinely, and they're correct, yes, it can do that. Then you get in, you buy the tool, and it's not really automated. You know, it's like automated-ish, but it like checks the box lightly. You could see it, the outline of the check mark. So um, I think that buying tech before you understand your own process, huge mistake. So the impact can be dramatic. For example, piggybacking on that previous example of like mapping out, let's say, your intake process, it might be very obvious that creating a fee agreement and an invoice and all this just takes so much energy and time. It's like you're being punished for taking on new clients, right? Because it's all this administrative time. Um, if you focus and just automate that one piece, this is where automation actually does help. You found a problem, right? You're applying it to a solution. Fee agreement automation can reduce maybe 45 minutes to an hour of time down to like 2 minutes. And it's a very pointed thing you could throw resources at. That is a huge one. So I think common operational mistake is thinking tech will just like fix it. You have to design it first and then shop around that design. The other one that I see, Ruby, often is, um, oh, I built an SOP for it. It's this 80-page thing in my Google Drive,
Yeah,
right? Like people
yeah.
have it. What's wrong? What's wrong
Mhm.
with these people? They're not accessing my freaking SOP, you know? I'm looking at the audit
I wrote
logs.
it down, like, why don't they
Yeah,
follow it?
yeah, and we do work with some Type A attorneys, which are funny. They're like, I checked the audit logs and no one's been in there, you know? And so I'm like, well, let's open it, right? And so when you open the SOP, it's this 80-page ChatGPT created thing. Not saying you didn't spend 5 hours last night while you're watching Love is Blind building it, yes, but but no one's going to go back to it. We're in
Uh-huh.
this era. We're in this era where people have zero attention span, Ruby.
Yeah.
It's shot, right? And so at a glance, when someone opens this document, they're going to make a judgment of whether they're ever coming back to it. And so they're
Mhm.
not. So big operational mistake is like I created the SOPs, I put a lot of work into it, and they're not coming back to it. So to fix that, we recommend replace your first pass of these like busy Claude or ChatGPT SOPs with a bulleted list of what happens across each stage for all your case types. A simple bulleted list. It creates the foundation for what we call task-driven case progression, and it
Mhm.
enables your team to know when I'm doing an adjustment of status. Oh, probably too soon for that example. I'm sorry. If we're doing some other example, you know exactly what you're doing in the case prep stage versus working, let's say, in immigration in an employment-based case. There's different work that happens. And so if you write out some bulleted lists for these different case types that you do, for each stage, from onboarding to case prep to whatever's next, right? Um, your team will thank you immediately because now they know what you expect. And you can turn this into SOPs and even great automations later.
Um, I think that's brilliant, and, you know, I often say, like, you need to have your SOPs, and then you look at your tech stack, and you know, vice versa, but, like, they need to be looking at them on a regular basis because,
Hmm.
maybe you just developed a SOP because the tech you had at the time had its limitations and made you do something.
Yep.
Then the tech changes and has more functionality and you don't have to do that thing. I always think about like that the Zig Ziglar story about the woman in the roast in the pan, and you know I put it in the
Yep.
book, but I mean it's didn't invented that the story or anything, but just like you know she always was cut the both sides. I'm a vegetarian too, so I should not be telling the story,
Oh, you
but
are.
yeah,
That's
so
right.
she cut both ends or something, and the husband asked, like, "Why do you do that?" And she goes, "I don't know, my mom did it." And then the mom was alive, and so she called the mom, and then the mom's like, "I don't know, my mom did that." And then apparently that mom was still alive, so they called that mom, and so is the grandma in the story. And she's like, "Oh, I just had a small pan." And so it was just done that way because of the limitation at the time, but nobody really sat. I mean, for years and years, this thing has been done that way. And so like I love that example because it's like, are we just doing the thing because we saw someone else do the thing and we didn't really sit
Yeah.
back and say, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah. And you know, it's actually a really interesting point there, Ruby. When we design law firms with law firms, like when we design their operations and we go stage by stage across every body of work and we work with them to design it, we come into those moments where they amongst themselves, the staff at the firm, look across the room and think, whose requirement was like who did that? And they're like, oh, this was legacy, right? It was like the previous partner owner who's been
Mhm.
gone for a decade. And so they get to reimagine these processes. And it's really interesting. Like I'll give you a good example. Most firms that we walk into have a attorney review that's maybe in the wrong place. Maybe it's too early in the process. Or maybe
Mm,
it's just placed wrong. And when we start to figure out why is it there, they're like, I don't know. Where should it be?
yeah. That's why I like to keep that healthy dose of like thinking outside the box and questioning why we do what we do and
Yeah.
if there's another way of doing things. And I can't really eloquently say it, but from a lot of the things that I read from like with Jordan Furlong and Richard Susskind,
Mm,
they're basically saying, like you're saying tech is an accelerator, but they're also saying like tech is a way to reimagine the delivery of services. And
it is.
we could really sit back and think like, how can
It
we do
is.
things differently?
It is. I will say I'm a very forward-leaning technologist. So when I say this, it comes with a heavy heart, right? But I do think when you introduce technology, like at a high complexity level, like let's say, let's create a really automated killer process to do something. And even if my firm does it for you, right? You are inheriting complexity, you know? And there's some maintenance that goes with that, whether it's your time or there's an external party. Um, so I do always caution firms to just really think about their aptitude and their threshold for complexity in a space like technology, because it sounds great, it will save you a ton of time, but when the process changes, then what? Are you shelling out some bucks, to get it updated? Are
Right.
you putting in your time? Do you have a good plan in place? Just questions to ask yourself before you commit to something wholeheartedly like that.
And realistic timeline for a law firm owner who wants to go from reactive to intentional on how they run their practice, what would you say that timeline would be?
Oof,
Give
I'll
us
give
some
you a
hope.
real number. I'll
Give
give
us
you
some
a
hope.
real number because I'm seeing this. I'm living this.
All right.
And
Good.
and owners are tired of like vague stuff. The
Yeah.
full operation reset that law firm architects does is 14 weeks start to finish.
Okay. Okay.
And so
Like
and
a
and
little
so
over a
this
quarter. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and the reason that it takes that amount of time is because one, we have to account for change management. We need buy-in, we need ownership, we need team participation. We're also throwing information back and forth, the law firm team to my team, and so there's a lot of synthesis that needs to happen and review and consideration. So it's 14 weeks. First 6 or so weeks, you should really spend your time designing, mapping out, finding gaps, locking this design, meaning you've reviewed it with your peers at your firm, right? Even if it's sticky notes that you're putting on the wall in a conference room, which is my favorite way, Ruby, to do this, is in person. It's my favorite because you can just take post-it notes and put them on a wall, and like everyone can see the process and move them around, and you can color code them if you're crazy OCD like me. But that really makes a ton of sense because that collaboration up front, we call it design, takes about 6 weeks out of the 14. It's where you're making all of the decisions. It's where you have the food fight on which way is right. It's how you know what gets fixed when. It's where you figure out priority. Um, the back half of that time is really implementing stuff. There's technology to do, right? There's people strategy, so there's training, there's conversations. For example, you had talked earlier, Ruby, about an example of someone not being ready to lead, right?
Mhm.
Um, we spend time, and I think a business owner DIYing this could spend time coaching that person, right? Like, hey, you're a leader. This is why you're here. Like, I need you. I trust you, right? We're in this journey together. So that becomes really important in the back half. Build, stabilize the team, get everything going, and make the mental shift from we just did this together and now, we're in this space where we can continue to reimagine. We just have to be strategic and collaborative about it, right? Because now this is a team thing. We've created this firm. So 14 weeks is the long-winded answer there, but it's not without design, right? Like you can't just jump in to start tinkering with stuff.
No, if you want to be really long lasting and put some thought into it, to have those aha moments, to really sit down and let it breathe and think, why are we doing what we're doing? And is there a better way to do
Yeah.
it? Like, I think that that seems like a very reasonable timeline. So we are collaborating on a law firm retreat in Denver, Colorado, August 5th through 8th, 2026. What would you say to those who are listening? Like, what do you think they're going to take away from this retreat? Because we still have some openings at the time of this recording, so but probably not for very long. We're it's going to be an intimate, but yeah, we have a good amount of size. We're going to be at a like an Airbnb in Denver. Like I thought, let's go north for August. I need to get out of
Love it.
Texas, and we're going to have the sound bath, and we're going to be focusing on mission
Oof.
and marketing and goals, but then also law firm. So it's a collaboration between Power Strategy Group and law firm architects. So what will be some of the things that those who in attendance will take away?
Oh, I'm so thrilled about this, Ruby, because this is really a return to law firm architects' roots. We work in this virtual capacity with law firms, but being able to bring the methodology in person is going to be awesome. So I'm genuinely excited about this. As you mentioned, we're building this together. Um, it's in Denver, which is one of my favorite cities, and please get me out of Puerto Rico in the summer. That's where I live right now. Like I'm out. I need out. Um, but this exists for the law firm owner and their plus one operator who want to come in and do the thing I described over 14 weeks, at least the first 6 weeks of that over a couple of days with us. And so it's, as Ruby mentioned, it's intimate. It's intended to be, um, a lot of one-on-one time and personalization. For the firms that are coming, there's some pre-work, right, that they'll do that'll set up and accelerate a lot of this, because my team and your team can synthesize these insights and bring to these sessions a starting point. So we're not starting from scratch. But I think what I get excited about this, Ruby, and these were your words, this is not a conference. Let's not use the C word
Mhm.
at this thing. This is a retreat, right? And so when we think about the types of things we're talking about across our teams here, vision, mission, and goals on day one, like just early, thinking about what are those kind of key systems that the firm has that maybe live in someone's head. Let's make those visible. Let's bring them forward. We have some sessions where it's actually experiential, like we're leading a session where data is being captured and participants are doing stuff. But we have others where we are lecturing and sharing information because we want folks to have knowledge to be able to drive this forward. And so we'll talk about client experience and client management. We'll talk about culture and the importance of team alignment. And of course, Ruby, our favorite from our new series, change management.
Mhm.
Um, but the undertone of really how we met, by the way, going back full circle, is like self-care for leaders, like
Mhm.
wellness, and the need for lawyers to take care of themselves and to think about a grounding experience with your peers at this retreat, because everyone is in a similar headspace as you, and we all just need to kind of be coherent so that we can make plans. But beyond that, some of the things that I'm leading myself, and I'm very, very excited because the content for this is looking so good, is tech and automation. We're going to lead firms through identifying the specific technology, shiny objects, the AI things that actually move the needle for them. Because this is what firms want, right? Like they want someone to say, okay, there's a lot of stuff we could do, but what fits? What moves the needle? Um, and I wish I could spend all the time in technology, but we will move into people strategy things, hiring, VAs, managing hybrid teams, thinking about finance and legal fees. That's a big topic right now, especially with optimizing fee structures. I've seen that a lot. But the goal for these 2 days across this and way more topics that we'll cover in a very not overwhelming and fun and engaging way is to make sure firms leave with an action plan. Like that is the thing that Ruby, you and I are motivated by here is
Exactly.
is ensuring that when people walk out the door, they know exactly what to do next, whether they do it themselves or someone does it for them, right? Or they have someone in their team or they hire. That action plan is like literally 6 to maybe 8 weeks of work in our process. And because of the pre-work, because of the retreat style, we're able to offer this really unique experience. And I'm also able to hang out with you, Ruby, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you and Nadine. My office manager, Mariella, is coming. And then all the other people who are attending. Like, honestly, it's not just the amazing content in the venue, but it's also that energy and synergy amongst the attendees. It's going to be awesome. And so we have that information on the Power Strategy Group website under events. It's the Law Firm Retreat 2026 for those interested. Luis, it's been great. How can people find you and stay connected with you?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere on LinkedIn. I'm also on lawfirmarchitects.com. You can find our website there. Contact information, everything is there as well. Yeah, keep an eye out. We have a lot of exciting stuff doing. Our website talks a lot about our services and courses and other things that we offer. But the biggest value that I get, the biggest reward that I get, sorry, is giving away value to other law firms. So the call to action on our website is actually to book a call. It's a free call, and we ask you questions about your firm, and then we meet with you for 45 minutes and help you build a plan. And it's a plan that you get to walk away with, independent of working with us or not, because that's what actually drives law firm architects. Like, I had to save my fiance from this, so I love this. It's my mission, and my team's mission. So please reach out. Happy to kind of field any questions or help people in whatever stage of law firm operations they're in.
Well, thanks, Luis. And we've talked a lot about like how do we keep the law firm owner from being the bottleneck. A lot about the mindset and attitude. We know how long it'll take to go from reaction to intentional. We've got 14 weeks. So we have a lot of good concrete action items here. And we also know that if we could map out our SOPs in a nice, simple, digestible way, not something fancy and AI slop. But then if we get overwhelmed by that, to be able to just focus on where would we get the biggest bang for our buck, if we were to focus on just that one area, and then build some confidence and then say, okay, now I can take over the rest of the firm, or one step at a time. But you're very encouraging, very inspirational. And I think you have to, when people come to you and they show you the underbelly, or is that the right expression? I mean, like the of
Yeah.
the firm, because it can be a little embarrassing, but
Hmm.
if you've seen it, you've probably seen it all at this point, and you're getting close to it. And
Yep.
and
Yep.
to be able to help guide teams through this transition and this challenge. But I mean, ultimately, we're trying to get to that margarita on the beach in the end, right? That's or
Yeah. That's
whatever it is.
that's right. Or even getting home to dinner for their kids, right? Like, I hear
That's
that
right.
often. That breaks my
And
heart.
yeah, no, exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why I put that tagline on the book,
Love
the
that.
life that you deserve, because that's
So
what we're
true.
trying to do, is to create that
It's
and be intentional.
absolutely true. I love that, Ruby.
Yeah.
It's such a good reminder, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast. This has been so much fun. I'm excited for all of our series. I think we have like three or
I know.
four
I
we
was
called
about
out
to
on
say, it
here.
sounds like you're coming back a few more times. So, so it's not adios. It's until the next time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care, Luis. And thanks everyone for listening. And you'll watch us again next time on the next episode of Power Up Your Practice. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.